So, welcome back to Mojo Talk Radio, and I'm here with one of my favorite reoccurring guests, Eve Gaudet. And today, Eve is joining us to talk about one of our favorite topics, failure. So, well, the way Eve's going to help us understand it, it's a positive thing, never a negative thing when Eve's here. So, I'm Pamela Sylvan, your host, as you all know, and I'm back again with some more hot mojo tips to help us spiral up in all areas of our life. And today's wonderful, beautiful guest, Eve Gaudet, she is an executive coach helping people who are in the upward spiral up in their careers. And she's here to help us on the inside and on the outside understand the true nature of what it is to really lead ourselves in very powerful and inspiring ways. Eve, thank you for joining us here again on Mojo Talk Radio.
My pleasure, as always, Pamela. I love coming on here. And yeah, we're going to talk about failure. And, you know, yeah, sometimes it is negative, but let's look at it, let's reframe it to be something that we can make useful for ourselves. So, you know, the first thing, of course, is to err is human. Mm-hmm. We all do it. Mm-hmm. You know, we all do it. And I don't know about you, but I was brought up with always do your best. Always go for the brass ring, all of that kind of stuff. Well, you know, that's great. But what they forgot to say was the tagline, which is if you don't quite get there, it's still okay. Right?
Well, you know, let me stop there for a minute. Let's talk about this because there's so much information coming around on the topic of failure, because I think at some place, if the word was synonymous with you're practically dead at this point, right? Yeah. I mean, it was failure and the C word all mixed up in the same thing. And now that, you know, there's all this research, I'm doing my own reading as well, that you can't have success without failure. It's the opposite side of the same coin.
Yeah, you can't. And here's why. Because think back for yourself and anybody who's watching. Think back to a time where you did something you there was things going on in your work, for example, that just weren't landing right. And you were not making some good choices, or you could have done one thing that kind of tipped the iceberg. What happened after that? What happened?
You mean after I fell into a failure type of situation?
Yeah.
Well, there's one time I'm thinking in particular that I consider it to be a failure. I remember going on the deck and sitting there watching a tree thinking, is this the end of my life? And the answer was no. Once I got over the initial feeling, because you got that feeling, you're always going to feel that nasty feeling in you, and wanting to dive into a place of pity. But once I was able to circumvent that, it was about what's next.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. Okay. So you hit on a couple of really important things there. First of all, when we've done something that, you know, wasn't copacetic or resulted in an outcome that we weren't expecting or didn't want, we do get that emotional response. Mm-hmm. And we should get that emotional response. This, just like when we do something wonderful, we feel great. Okay, so feeling bad is okay, and feel it. Mm-hmm. Just take a moment to feel it. Mm-hmm. But don't get into a pity party. Yeah. So once you felt it, and if it has to do with somebody else, maybe you said something that just didn't land well with somebody or whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's time for that self-reflection. It's time to say, okay, what was my intent? Why did I make that decision? Or why did I say that thing? Because at the moment, you know, there was a reason why you did it. And be really honest with yourself, because sometimes it's because we're competitive. Sometimes we're ego-driven. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, and most often this is the case, I think, is that we didn't have all the information. Yeah. Right? It boils down to we each have our own reality. Yeah. And we can only see certain perspectives. We may not have all the information.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it could have been that we made the best decision in that moment.
Yeah. You know, one of the things when it comes to the word failure, when you're sort of hanging out with people that are success driven, and we talk a lot about that word of success, achievement, accomplishment, all wrapped up. The word failure seems to be so off the table because we are so afraid of outing ourselves when it comes to, oh, I had, to use your word, misstep, or I should have known, or how come I wasn't smart enough to know better or to do better. So we don't want to put ourselves in that category of somehow missing the boat. And I speak for myself sometimes. It's like, how am I compared to others out there in the field around certain things if I've made a misstep? And the problem with our missteps now, you can't hide it behind the doors anymore because we're in the world. Every little misstep you make, for the most part, it's out there.
Well, and I think that's why we're talking about it so much. It was, it was the hidden taboo subject. And, you just cower in a corner if you had a failure and you just worked harder to get to some success after that. But here's something that really struck me and changed my thinking about failure. I had a CEO, and we were going through this big transformation, and things did not go well around one aspect of it. And he called a big staff meeting. So, there were hundreds of people there. And he actually said, you know what? We were going down this path. And you know what? I made a mistake. And I was just like, whoa. He said, I made a mistake. I own this. I'm the head of this organization, and I take full responsibility. We made a mistake. I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Okay. That was powerful in itself. I ran into him a few years later, and I said, that really stuck with me. And he looked at me and says, oh my gosh, which mistake were you talking about? I made so many of them. I mean, talk about failure. And I went, what? Here's this person who I really looked up to. And as a result, I look up to him even more, simply because he outed himself and said, you know what? I thought this was the right way to go. It wasn't. We're going to switch course. How powerful is that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's about that whole perfectionist syndrome too, trying to avoid the failure and finding yourself stuck in a certain place because you don't want to be imperfect or whatever the name is. What do you say to people that are caught up in that little illusion?
Oh, that's so funny because I always write notes before I come on here, just doing my brain dump and doing my research and whatnot. And it's so funny you bring up perfectionism because they are very closely linked. And I tell you, Pamela, how many clients I have who use the perfectionist term. I'm a perfectionist. I just want more, on and on and on and on. And, that's a topic unto itself. However, that is related to fear. So for some reason, maybe it's in your personality, your history, your life experience, you drive yourself to be a perfectionism out of fear.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What specifically are perfectionists fearing? Like, can we name a couple things?
Well, fear of making mistakes, fear of being less than, fear of not being good enough, fear of that it's a motivator for some people, right? Fear is a motivator, and for other people, fear keeps them back. So if I live in fear, I can protect myself.
Yeah, I think for me, it depends on the day, but for the most part, it's a motivator. So I know I have those perfectionist tendencies that used to drive my mother nuts as I was growing up because I wouldn't do anything unless it was perfect. And as an adult with her own business, I have to be careful because nothing will get done if I spend too much time working something out, which I've been known to do sometimes too. So I know the fear is about looking less than, or I had this bit growing up in my brain about persecution. Oh, people are going to laugh at me because there was a time when somebody did, and that stuck.
Okay, that is a perfect example. So what if we kind of look at that for a second and reframe it a bit? Since that one time that's happened, has it happened since? That you know?
Not openly, but now the boogeyman is, oh, people are laughing at me. See,
Okay.
that
Well,
illusion
yeah.
sticks in your, it sort of overshadows, right?
But what if you were to actually say, no, I'm going to throw that one in the garbage, and I'm actually going to go with the premise that people are good. People are supporting me. People want me to do well.
Mm-hmm.
What if I did it that way? What if I did it because I know I can do it,
Mm-hmm.
and others around me, they know I can do it too?
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for that one. What I had done is um, to get past all of that, or not even get past it, but to work with it anyway, is, well, even if people are laughing, it's okay. I'm going to do it anyway. Because I didn't know what else to do with it. I had to do something or stay stuck.
Yeah, yeah. And when you do that, there's a sense of freedom that kind of comes with it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? The shackles are off. Oh, I actually get to choose. I don't actually have to behave or take action based on what other people are thinking. And at that point, I think what's really important. So, for example, in work, you know, gather up as much information as you can about the decision that you're going to make.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's okay to run through it with somebody else. You know, some people I know always do pros and cons list, all those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can try different ways of doing it, but if you don't explore and gather that information and try to look at it from different perspectives, who's going to be impacted by it? Mm-hmm. What's the downstream effect? All of those things. I mean, that's a true leader goes through that kind of thinking. Mm-hmm. You know, there's not a lot of off the cuff. Yeah. Right? So I think that's really important. So one of my favorite leadership books of all time, The Extraordinary Leader by Zenger and Folkman, they had a great quote that I love. Said, a healthy attitude toward mistakes and negative experiences is crucial to growth and improved performance.
So what does a healthy attitude look or sound like?
Okay. A healthy attitude is not about seeking mistakes in order to grow. I mean, it's nothing like that. It's
good.
yeah. No, we're not asking you to make mistakes. They will happen on their own without us right?
Oh yeah.
A healthy attitude is about doing what we talked about, where, okay, take that moment and go, yeah, I screwed up, feel it, and then go, wait a minute, what's the opportunity forward here? And here's the thing, what can I learn about this? What can I learn about this? Mm-hmm. And it might be things like, what could I do differently next time? It could be, what was my motivation? As I mentioned earlier, was my motivation misplaced? Like ego? Who didn't I get information from? Who should have been involved in this discussion? You know, those kinds of things, right?
What about those types of people or personalities that always tend to find themselves in a failure position, not because they're screw ups, it's just somehow they keep falling into some pit. So, and the reason I'm asking this, I was having this discussion with myself, not another person, with myself. because I find when I look back at my history and all the things that I've done in my life, and I'm thinking, still not feeling that pinnacle of success I thought I would have had by this time in my life. Like, why is that? Um, and then I did some research, and they said sometimes because you might be a producer instead of a performer. And if I'm trying to fit myself into the role of performer and I'm actually a producer, I might be, they say, putting that ladder up against the wrong wall, right?
Yeah.
And not finding my true authentic success because I'm in a role I should not find myself in. And as a producer, I can produce all day long.
Yeah.
I almost find it resentful that, oh, now somebody wants me to perform. Now, for the viewing audience, performer versus producer. Producers are people that like to write, blog, podcast, that kind of thing. Their content is continually coming out forth from them.
Mm-hmm.
Performers are typically those that are given task and they do it beautifully or not. It all depends, but they are the people that get things done, or they're salespeople do both. Salespeople are producers and they're performers. So we're not really talking about people in that role. But I find myself to be continuously producing stuff. I have more stuff than I know what to do with. It's about now trying to keep up with everything that I produced. And so when I'm looking back in my life, I'm thinking, I was squeezing myself into the performance role, not my place. Not where I thrive, not where I really want to go, not where I feel comfortable. But people might say, well, Pam, but you're on in front of a camera, you're performing. Not really. I'm producing content.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think this speaks to also different leadership styles, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is no one size that fits all.
No.
There isn't. Because we all come with so many different characteristics that make us up.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing there is that you've discovered where you are most effective, where you're comfortable.
Yeah.
And, I think you've hit on something really important is sometimes those people that it seems like they're continuously, nothing goes right for them or it's never quite landing. My question, if I were coaching somebody like that, would be, is this job the right fit for you? Are you actually in the right place?
Yeah.
And if I have to ask that question, I can tell you 10 out of 10 times, they'll honestly say, yeah, it's not a good fit.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so much fear around that because people stick to things that don't work, whether it be a job or a relationship or whatever, simply through fear of having to go out seeking a loan, lack of cash flow. I mean, there's just so many reasons.
Oh, judgment, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And yet, if we stay in that place and we don't find the door, it's not going to get better. It's not going to change.
No.
So, failure is about, or surviving failure is about finding that doorway. The doorway where you can look through.
I'm writing that down. So success is finding the doorway. That's a quotable quote.
Yeah, success is finding, and surviving failure is about finding the doorway.
Good one.
I mean, I can tell you the times of greatest learning, and believe me, I've had my share, have been as a result of failure. And, once I got through that quick pity party, it's like, no, I can do better than this. Yeah. I know inside I've got more to offer. Mm-hmm. I'm better than this. I have to walk through that door. Yeah. Yeah. It's a very humbling thing too. And that's part of the growth too. It says to your ego, you know what? It's not about that. It's humbled us.
Do you have any steps for people who are on that razor's edge or they're on the verge of something and it's just about making that decision? Like, because I'm seeing it in my head because I've walked it a few times myself about, I know there's a doorway that I need to go through. All hell could possibly break loose if I choose the door. Are there ways to prepare for opening that door, or does this one just have to open the door and go?
Well, yeah, I do think there is a way to prepare. Absolutely, there is. And sometimes it takes a bit of time. I think it really is about going back into yourself, that self-awareness piece. Mm-hmm. You know, the more you can learn about yourself and ask yourself those hard questions, or work with a coach, or work with somebody who can mirror and help you to ask the tough questions and have some courage and face up to it.
Yeah.
You know, don't pack it up in a suitcase and put it away. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, this is the time to face up to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, without beating yourself up, mm-hmm. you know, accept that perhaps this wasn't your finest moment.
Or even living up to your sense of values too. We talk a lot about authenticity and living an authentic life, and I'm gathering a lot of people are living inauthentic, only to keep the illusion going in some way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, illusion is, you meet people and you know immediately. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure you're similar this way. We can meet people and immediately sniff out an illusion. Yeah. And for me, I run the other way. I do have clients that are like that, but it's funny, when most people come to coaching, they're ready to dispel and get rid of the illusion, right? Yeah. And so it's confidential. So I'm getting the real deal. And if I'm not, I'm going to find it. I mean, that's part of my job, is to help them to find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the big things that I think is critical to walking through the door is to understanding that there are multiple perspectives, right? And so if you're going to go through the door, ready yourself, in answer to your question, and just be open. Suspend your judgment, mm-hmm. Suspend criticism of yourself and others, mm-hmm. Suspend what you think is outside the door. Go with a learner's mind. Mm-hmm. Go with openness. Yep. Watch. Yep. Humbly move forward. And it's amazing what you'll begin to see. Because I think a lot of us, we make mistakes because we're stressed. We make mistakes because we think we have the answer. Mm-hmm. We make mistakes because what we did in the past, we think will work this time. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. Yeah. So it's about being open. And the one other thing that I think is important is, if you're working with other people, so if you have a staff or even family or whatever your situation is, what about those people? You know, ask yourself, what's it like for them to work with you? Mm-hmm. Hmm. What is it like for them? Do they see somebody who's critical? Do they see somebody who's always going for perfection and doesn't allow mistakes to happen, or you know, doesn't accept that to err is human? Yeah. Because if you're working with somebody like that, then quite frankly, it's going to be really hard you're never going to meet their expectations.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you hit on a good point too about the self-reflection and introspection, and that's a tough place for a lot of people to go. It can be painful, and a lot of people hide from this.
Yeah.
And if you can get yourself to go there, it's so liberating. And especially you're dealing with a lot of leaders who are going to the next level in their careers and lives, and at that next place requires some more cleaning up of self, especially as they're going to be affecting other people, right? You got to take care of your stuff first, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm putting myself through as well at this point. And it's amazing to see, who am I if I turn around and look? Like you said, who's dealing with me? And what is it that they're dealing with? Yeah. And can I be truthful and honest about that? And maybe some failures have been about my refusal to see my own stuff or blind spots or whatever.
You've hit the nail on the head. Absolutely, Pamela. And quite frankly, we all do it, but you're absolutely right. If you are somebody who is moving up in an organization or has your own business, you are the leader, right? And so your leadership requires that you constantly scan what's in front of you.
I like that word, scan.
That you go into a room and you're scanning the climate, you're scanning people, you're scanning the information, you're scanning all sorts of things, not judging.
Yeah.
You're just scanning and noticing.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a really utilized skill.
Yes. And I'm going to bring in, to sort of cap off our conversation here, the word gratitude. And what does that have to do with, in conjunction with failure? I would say everything, because at the other side of the learning process of failure is gratitude that you got through and hopefully picked up some new info that you can use to keep moving in one way or the other, so you don't keep doing the same thing over and over again. But also using gratitude to grow and to hold yourself in a place of non-judgment of self, because what tends to happen when we fall into failure or a misstep, as you say, we start being critical of self and what's wrong with me and why can't I be like her or him or them or whatever the deal is. So that's a big one for most people. They fall down and then they go nuts.
Or project outward and they criticize everybody else. It's one of those two ways.
Yeah.
So I totally agree about gratitude, but I'd also add the word grace.
Grace. Yeah.
To be able to stand in your place and just hold a sense of grace.
Yeah.
As you walk through that door.
Yeah. And let everybody see you in all your glory.
Yeah.
And with that, Eve, I want to thank you so much for joining us here. So before we go, just share with the listening audience who you are out in the world and how you help people do what they do.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm an executive coach, and I work with lots of different types of, or people in different types of situations. I work with a lot of leaders, from CEOs to senior leaders, particularly people who are fairly new to leadership and they are on that spiral. I work with a number of entrepreneurs who want to take their business to the next level, and they need a thinking partner. And they also, need to be able to talk about themselves, understand themselves more, and how that links up with the business. And really, it's about setting goals, figuring things out, pushing away the blind spots, opening their perspective, and getting to that place of an action plan to move them forward, and holding them accountable.
Wonderful. So, Eve, how can we find you online?
My company is Eve of Change. So just Google in eveofchange.ca and you'll get to my website.
Beautiful, beautiful. Any parting words of wisdom for us here around the topic of failure?
Ask yourself, how can I use this mistake to propel myself forward?
Good. Nice one. Nice one. Eve, as always, thank you. For the listening audience, Eve is a recurring guest here on Mojo Talk Radio, bringing her insights in the land of careers and job and work. I deal a lot with entrepreneurs, so it's always good for me, especially to keep refreshed with what goes on the other side, because it's all relevant. We're outside entrepreneurs, and everybody else is inside entrepreneurs.
That's right. That's
all
right.
responsible for our success in whatever way we look for it. So thank you for listening to us again on Mojo Talk Radio, and Eve, look forward to another wonderful session with you again.
Okay. Thanks, Pamela, for having me. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. See you again.